But no, it's true, because it's very familiar what you're talking about to typical Western-raised young people. Even in the East, I was in Lebanon for several years. I studied there. And young people, similar.
Yeah.
However, your journey is very similar to my journey and the journey of many other young people here in a very similar way. That's the idea, that back in the days we thought only if you're 40 and over you'll be in the masjid, and the Quran is just for people at that age, because nobody actually spoke the Quran to us in the way that it's supposed to be spoken. It's a speech.
Yeah, it's a speech.
So you've got to bring it like Allah is really talking to you. And that's amazing how you said he became absent, and it's as if Allah is speaking to you.
He disappeared. He went into the background.
Amazing. He would be my role model too, mashallah.
Yeah, and so he not only was this a surreal experience in a spiritual sense, I still had a lot of psychological baggage, right? And the philosophy of ethics, the epistemology stuff, whatever. This was all circling in my head. What he didn't know is, as he was going through Baqarah and then Ali Imran, he was untying every one of the philosophical knots that were in my head without me ever approaching him and saying, "What do you say about this? And what do you say about this?" And he wasn't even saying it. It was just the Quran saying it. And I'm hearing that. I'm saying, well, that problem just got solved. Oh, well, okay, yeah, well, And he's just unraveling my philosophical knots, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then the other thing simultaneously that the Quran was doing in that conversation, you just felt like someone who really knows you, and you can't believe they know you that well, and they're talking to you. They're like, who told you this about me? How do you know that about me?
Can I just, I have to, before I forget.
Yeah.
Because you just reminded me of something amazing. I want to share it with the people. So two things. A lot of people who convert to Islam, or revert, whichever word you want to use, I hear the common phrase from them when I talk to them. They say, I thought I was reading the Quran, but then I found that the Quran reads you.
Yeah.
It truly does read you and goes right deep into your soul, doesn't it? You just got to open up to it. Another one, have you heard of Dr. Jeffrey Lang?
Of course.
Yeah. So you're reminding me of what he was saying in that famous talk of his, where he was saying it broke every single argument brick by brick in my mind.
Yeah.
So because he came from a purely atheistic background.
Yeah.
So there's a similar journey there. I wanted to highlight that. You made that similarity, didn't you?
Yeah, I really love Dr. Jeffrey Lang.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Dr. Jeffrey Lang.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zakir Naik is another guy.
Yeah. So after that experience, I was both elated, but I was also really angry. I was really angry because I was maybe 18 years old by then, 18 and a half maybe, and I felt like my entire upbringing in the Muslim world robbed me of the Quran. Like, how come nobody told me Allah talks to you?
SubhanAllah.
Like, I felt gypped. I felt cheated. Like, this is wrong. Why shouldn't people know this? Like, everybody should know this. And it made me so upset that people don't know this, And it's at the end of that program that I went to my teacher, the lecturer. He didn't know who I was. I just went up to him and I said, I want to do what you're doing. I just want to do what you're doing. I want to know what you know. And he goes, okay, easy. Learn Arabic. Easy, learn Arabic. That's what he said. I was like, okay, how do I learn Arabic? He goes, I'm starting a class next week. So I started learning Arabic with him the next week.
They had that course in the masjid.
They had the course in the masjid, yeah.
Okay, right.
And then that just became the start of my obsession with the Quran, with the Arabic language. Arabic only because it was just, every time I learned something in Arabic, I wanted to see how does it enhance my understanding of the Quran. And just, I kept going back and kept going back. And it was, I was a bad student in university. Like, B's are a good day, right? So I had a hard time focusing. I was distracted.
Did better than most of us. But just before, so you learned Arabic one-on-one private, or did you go formally?
No, I studied with him for 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah. And then he was teaching a crash course.
Right.
So I studied that with him for 3 weeks. And then he didn't have a book to teach from. We had this all in his head. So I was like, can you have a book? He goes, okay. Next day I came, he had, those print paper? He literally hand wrote an 80-page book by hand and then photocopied it and stapled it and said, here's your book. Yeah. Let me use that as a book.
Amazing.
And then I learned some basics of Nahu and Sarf and how they apply to the Quran. And then I started, so that was going on. I was like, I need to memorize this book. I need to understand more. I need to know more. And then it was so frustrating because the more I memorized, every other word I don't know what it means. Then there's another word I don't know. Then I don't know. Then I don't know. Then I don't know, right? So I need to build this Arabic thing. This needs to happen. But I was going full-time to college, full-time to work. You know, my parents couldn't afford my tuition, and they had already gone back to Pakistan, so I'm living alone at this point, right? So I was just doing all of these things just to, every extra bit of time I had was going into just either memorizing Quran or studying something in Arabic. And then he left, and that was a new problem. Now what do I do? Like, what do I learn now, right? So then I started, because it felt to me like if I don't make progress with the Quran, I'm going to regress what I've gained. Like what I've gained spiritually, what I've gained philosophically, the connection I've made. The whole connection is Quran. So I can't lose that, because if I lose Quran, I'll lose Allah. That's what I felt like. So it was this desperation to want to get more and more of this, right? So I started taking the train to Astoria. It was an Arab neighborhood in Astoria. They have really good shawarmas, Lebanese. And the imam, everybody speaks in Arabic there. So I just go and literally just...
So Lebanese
shawarma is pretty legit.
You can speak Lebanese accent?
No.
Okay.
Abadan.
You saved yourself?
No,
yeah.
No.
So I'm Lebanese background, so I was going to test you.
Yeah, no, please don't.
This is hidayah, the meaning of hidayah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah wants goodness from them and sees goodness in them, He gives them the knowledge of the deen.
Yeah.
That's one area, mashallah.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where and eventually after 9/11, it was interesting because New York, obviously I was in New York and all of that mess happened in New York, and the Muslims were very particularly targeted, and there was a journalist, I forget which...
Even we copped it here. We had,
I'm sure,
scarves being pulled off, people being attacked in trams and stuff like that, yeah.
We had the authorities breaking down doors and all kinds of crazy stuff.
We're in the heart of it.
Yeah, we're in the heart of it.
Amazing. Tell us about it.
So when that happened, there was a journalist who heard me do a halaqah at my college. It was like a journalism student. So he applied, he asked his editor, I forget which magazine it was.
So a halaqah is a circle, Quran
circle?
Yes,
Quran study circle.
Used to have it in the
college, this 4 or 5 guys just get together,
Got it. Yeah.
you know. So he wanted to interview me. So I was like, okay, I'll interview you. So he interviewed me. This is like 3 months after 9/11. And he's interviewing me. I was like, so don't you feel like you turn towards religion because, you know, some people, they just need something to hook on to, like people hook on to drugs, other people hook on to paragliding.
We hear that all the time. Yep.
Right? And this he was trying to really make sense of this thing in that way. I had the most fascinating conversation with him, and it made me realize, man, it's either Allah will attach you to His guidance, or there are so many useless things that you will absolutely be attached to until it's too late. Right? There's going to be stuff that there's too many magnetic things in this world that will just, you know, pull you in, and you won't even know, and years will go by. Right? So that was a big part of, I think, what helped me. Then the other thing that I think helped me grow both spiritually and intellectually was an attitude that my teacher put in me that I really benefited from that. He told me that don't discriminate who you benefit from. Just benefit from everyone. Just learn. Grow and keep asking Allah for guidance, but don't discriminate. And like, don't underestimate Allah's power to guide you, and be scared. I shouldn't listen to this person because I might get misguided. I shouldn't listen to that person. No. If you're committed to Allah's book and you're committed to learning, Allah will guide you, but don't close doors. And that attitude led me to learn from ideologically opposite people in New York, because New York is very fragmented, like big cities are. You'll have masjids of a certain denomination, certain ideology, another masjid of the extreme opposite ideology, and the twain shall never meet. They might even describe each other as, you know, kuffar or bad.
So you're talking about the Muslim community.
Muslim community,
okay.
and even non-Muslims actually.
And non-Muslims.
And non-Muslims.
Okay.
And I opened that door of learning from any place. I'll learn. I'll consider everything. I'll listen to everything. And listen to it with an open heart. So, and what that did for my own Islamic studies was, for example, I was sitting in a halaqah and they were talking about, the Jamaat al-Tabligh, right? They call you to go in the path of Allah for this many days. I was like, okay, I can't comment on what they're doing until I experience it. So I went.
That was the first group you joined?
That was one of them. I was doing multitasking.
Right.
So
why is that the same story with all of us? We started with Tabligh too.
Yeah.
My father.
Allah reward them.
Yeah.
They did something pretty amazing.
Yeah. SubhanAllah.
And then I went to a halaqah where they were teaching me how the people in Tabligh are all misguided and their aqidah is bad and this. And then I was like, okay, I want to know why it's bad. So I sat and I studied aqidah with them for like a year. And then I went to another group. I don't want to name groups, but I went to another group who said, all of these people, they don't know what they're doing because they're not working to establish the khilafah, so why are they even wasting their time? So I was like, okay, let me find out how to establish the khilafah with you guys. So and any group I joined, and then I went another group who said, all these people, they talk about, establishing the state, but their heart's not even in the right state. And so they need to purify the state of their hearts. I was like, okay, let's figure out how to purify the state. Let me learn that. So I did not discriminate in what I could take from. And then what all of that did for me, it created a certain opinion, for better or for worse. That opinion was, everybody has a frame of reference, a lens by which they see the religion. Okay, they create this lens, and then they identify their entire view of Islam through that lens, right?
What's happened here, I think, I noticed that although you were listening to all those different groups, you weren't making a judgment immediately, and you were reserving, acting upon certain things zealously, or making that your belief or your way. You gave yourself some leeway, some space.
Yeah.
You didn't just attach yourself and go with it and say, they're the right people. And
I gave it I wouldn't say I approached it with a grain of salt. I did give it like wholehearted, let me fully learn and immerse myself in what's being said without being combative or being skeptical. I really want to know. And I really want to feel like I've embodied these ideas. And then see, does this hold? And the thing that I kept feeling, this is the crazy thing, the thing that I kept feeling was, that feeling that I had when I heard the Quran in the masjid, I never felt that again. I never felt that. That feeling never came back.
Interesting. What were you starting to feel?
I was starting to feel that everybody is trying to impose a certain angle onto the religion. But if I put the Quran at the center, then it allows itself to shed light on every issue. Like it's like the seerah, for example. I want to study the seerah, but I want to study the seerah in light of the Quran. I want to study the sunnah in light of the Quran. I want to study law in light of the Quran. I want to study aqidah in light of the Quran. Like, it's not, so what they were doing was, what I felt was, they were discussing a subject and the Quran was a reference to the point they were trying to make. So it was just a source of proofs and evidences for chapter 1, 2, 3 and the points they want to make, right? But it wasn't the source, it was the supporting evidence, right? And it's a completely different experience when that's the source and everything else is supporting evidence. Like that's your starting point.
It's when I have a belief, but then I go and pick and choose which ayat will support my belief.
Precisely.
And go with that. Rather, it should be the opposite.
Right. And then I noticed the more I discussed, because I don't want to debate, but I want to discuss. And it started making people really upset.